Welcome, welcome. This is Kingdom Cast. I'm Sean, your host, and this is the secondary channel of Kingdom in Context. So please go subscribe to that if this is how you found us, and also subscribe to this channel. Hit that thumbs up and hit the like button. Share it on your socials if you like what we're saying and what we're talking about. This is the podcast where we search for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the Creator's Word and of this world that He created, so we can better relate His words to this world because they need them. They really do. And I want to thank you for joining me here tonight. We have part 17 of our Investigating Babylon series that we're going to pick up with tonight. This one is about the image of the beast. Last week, we talked about the second beast. That's going to be the false prophet, right? We talked about, we kind of had to figure out who he was and why he matters to history. So we're going to do that also with the image of the beast, because believe it or not, it's been put in our face as propaganda for a long time. We just didn't know what we were looking at. Okay, guys, tell me how my sound is. Some people are complaining it's loud. Some people are complaining it's low. So I'm not sure. That's weird. Tell me how the sound is, guys, in the chat. We got two sides of the spectrum, low and high. Mic check, mic check. KJ47 says it's good, and Mackenzie says it's low. There we go. I have no clue. It's good now. It's great. Deciphering truth. Perfect for me. All right, guys. For once, I'm going to have to go with the consensus here. Either adjust your volume up or down. We have quite a few people telling me that it's okay. All right. Well, I'll try to turn it up just a little bit here. But ultimately, I'm right near the mic. This is the same mic I used a few hours ago in Honor of Kings. So hopefully it's nothing's going wrong. All right, guys. Welcome. And as you may have saw, we had the little advert there before I came in. We do have the study guide. So big shout out to everyone that has been supporting our ministry, both Kingdom in Context and Kingdom Cast, that's been either sending us physical letters in the mail, or either one using the PayPal or Patreon options in the video description. Everyone that's been supporting us, even if it's just your kind words as you send me a letter saying that what we're talking about, what we've been explaining, has been helping you in your walk, helping you grow, helping you feel closer to the Father because you understand Him more. A lot of people need that. A lot of people are not satisfied with just, an inspirational message to tell them how they should love God. A lot of people need to know the knowledge of God, as First Peter talks about, growing in the knowledge of God. It's a part of growing in your sanctification and your walk and your discipleship. So sometimes you need information. That's why, thankfully, the Father gave us a ton of this information through His prophets and His Word, and it's on my heart to share them with you so that we all have understanding. So, guys, I just want to hopefully you've been enjoying the Investigating Babylon series. I just want to thank you all for everyone that has been supporting us through our as you saw the little commercial there, through our contextual study guide of Scripture. So we just released James, another book we just released a few days ago, the book of James, for everyone that's on the family tier level of the Patreon, and that we have early access to a PDF version of it to at least have it and start studying it, reading it, and cross-referencing and testing everything that I put down on there. And as I go through the entire book of James with commentary, cross-reference scriptures with points of context, literally and conceptually. So hopefully it's a blessing to you. And that is how you get early access until I finish the final amount of books and have a big collected thick book for you to buy or to download. So thank you everyone for what you're doing there. And if you are interested in getting early access and supporting us for that, video description, that's where you can find that information with the Patreon link. Guys, this is a fascinating topic because it's such an overlooked topic. So many people forget that the image of the beast, which is created by the second beast, they get so not confused, but they just get so distracted with the mention of the mark of the beast in verse 16 and 17 that they forget that there's an image of the beast that's created that goes around the world, forcing people to worship the image of the first beast. That's what the image is made after, right? And then if they don't worship this thing, which represents the power and the authority of the first beast, then they're going to die. Then they'll be killed, martyred, right? So it seems really, really important to identify this character, and I'm going to. History does, scriptures do. I'll explain. It's fascinating, and it is right in line with all the pre-programming, because we've been talking about the ways of Babylon, and a part of that is indoctrination. Both like in parts 13 and 14, we talked about things that are not truly conspiracy that the world puts at you for fear and propaganda to manipulate you one way or another. Then also included in that is propaganda. Same thing with part 14, where we talked about the CIA and government experiments and different things like that, versions of mind control. Part of the mind control, part of the preparation of the ways of Babylon to perpetrate deception is to get you familiar with something before they bring it out. So that way it's not startling to you. This builds a sense of familiarity within you, but then also makes you less confrontational to change, especially when the change is initiated by something that it follows horrific behaviors. So they want you to be familiar with these concepts. That's why they're plugged into every form of art and media that is across the world today. And the image of the beast is no different. It's right there alongside with the first and second beast and Satan and all the other imagery of Babylon. And we're going to show you tonight. So let's get right into it. So this is part 17, Image of the Beast. And guys, if you're new to the series, please go back and start watching part 1 so that all this in series will make more sense to you. Because I'm doing this in installments, I can't stop people from watching the most recent installment first, but I would strongly recommend you don't, because we're getting into the higher level stuff as far as all the things I built for the last 16 episodes, of things I've been building in each episode, so that you'll understand these last several episodes even more, and you'll see it forever. You'll never unsee it now once we get done with this. But that's why I broke it into segments of 7. So there's 3 segments of 7. This series is going to be 21 parts as a total, past, present, and future. 7 parts in the past, we looked at the history of a lot of these things. 7 parts of the present, talked about different concepts that are perpetrated still today, as the empire of Babylon has its tentacles spread throughout the different cultures and nation states today. And then also now we're in the last 7, which is the future of Babylon, how it integrates with prophecy leading up to the day that the Messiah returns and has to stop them from all this nonsense. So if you haven't seen the rest, please go back and watch. But if not, if you have seen the earlier parts, I hope you enjoyed tonight. Revelation 13, 11 through 15. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. This beast had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. And this beast exercised all the authority of the first beast, and caused the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose mortal wound had been healed. And the second beast performed great signs to cause even fire from heaven to come down on earth in the presence of the people. Because of the signs it was given to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image to the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet had lived. Not the image had not been wounded. The first beast was wounded, but is alive now. And as we talked about last time, the consistency of who the second beast was in history, being Nurgle, being Anubis, being this Hades guy who had the ability to heal and even resurrect. And so this is consistent with who the first beast is, as we've reviewed in part 10 of this series. So the image that's created by the second beast is made to the image of the first beast character. So it says the second beast was permitted to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refuse to worship it to be killed. What does it look like when an image speaks? So guys, if you haven't, please go back and see social scoring, Mark of the Beast. This is where we identify the second beast. Okay, it's him who instigates the mark. It's him who forces it on the people. It's the second beast who creates this image and gives it the breath of life to be able to speak, cause people to worship the first beast. This guy is the hype man, the cheerleader for the first beast. It's him that is causing people to worship the first beast. Okay, and it's him who creates the image of the beast. Revelation 13, 11 through 15. Oh, I'm sorry, I just read that. So what is AI, artificial intelligence, or automatons in history? This is from ancient Greece. This is the most famous one. This is called the winged talon. Other times his name was called Talos. It's commonly referred to in many Greek writings as Talos. Talos. And he's armed with a stone in this particular coin. This is an actual coin from ancient Greece, approximately, 3rd, 4th century BC. A drachm. It's made of silver. Okay, this was just like their other gods they would put on their coins. They put this Talos on their coin. Who is Talos, and why is he sometimes referred to as winged? And I'll explain the differences. So here it says that this is some history about what we talked about in part 5 of this series. And as you're going to hear me say a lot of this, because this is all culminating, guys. This is why I had to break it up in installments, because now as we get in these last 2 episodes, you're going to see how it all is connected. It's a huge topic, like I said in episode 1, part 1 of this series. It's a massive topic. And I couldn't think of any other better way to teach it, to explain it all, to help people go through it step by step. So it says this is some ancient history of Mount Olympus. We reviewed some of this in part 5. We talked about Mount Olympus, home of the gods. The sacred mount was believed to have a temperate climate all year round. It's interesting. That doesn't sound like a mountain. And mountain gorges lush with forests. The gods did not always reside in their paradise, however, and would depart or return from there via a gate of clouds, guarded by the Hore, the goddesses of the seasons. An author's claim that tables in Zeus's palace on Olympus were made of gold and were actually automatons, created by Hephaestus. They moved in and out of the rooms as required by the gods. It was also designed by Hephaestus and was constructed from black marble. Inlaid with gold, each of the gods had their own palace on the mountain, usually constructed of gold and marble and situated in a gorge in the mountain peaks. So they're interesting, right, guys? There were automatons, according to ancient Greek stories about the gods, and we've already talked about who Zeus was. We already talked about the family of gods. And Apollo was under Zeus. We'll talk about that more later. It also talks about the gods met daily at Zeus's palace in the Pantheon, where they held feasts and discussed the fate of the mortals. There they drank nectar and ate ambrosia, which perpetuated their immortality. Allegedly, when the gods drank ambrosia, the blood in their veins was replaced by ichor, a substance that's toxic to humans. Ichor also ran through the veins of Talos, the Greek giant automaton. So that's interesting. Now we have this concept of these guys. Not only did they meet daily to discuss the fate of mankind, what they're going to do, how they're going to deceive mankind on a daily basis, right? But they also had a giant Greek automaton who had filled with this concept of this ichor, almost like some sort of weird oil, right? In Greek mythology, Talos, also spelled Talos, was a giant automaton commissioned by Zeus. and made of bronze to protect Europa and Crete from pirates and invaders. He circled the island's shores 3 times daily. Talos was said to have been programmed with the knowledge of the gods. Okay, so this isn't this isn't a table that that automatically goes in and out of a room. This is a giant robot programmed with the knowledge of the gods and filled with some sort of liquid. Yes, exactly. I will not be programmed because I'm not an automaton. Big shout out to Wes Blaze if he's in the house. So, guys, check this out. This is going to be, we're going to look at the death of Talos as depicted in cinema. This is actually a movie from 63, which is pretty crazy to me that like they've been putting this stuff in our face for a long time. Long time. I'm not going to have the sound on because, YouTube and all that nonsense. This is we're going to skip through some of this, but I'll at least show it to you. So this is Jason and the Argonauts. The idea that Jason was trying to attack the Greek gods, and this is what they had to face when they had to attack the Greek gods when they got to this island. They ran into Talos, a giant metal statue. Now, obviously, this is like claymation. This is 1963, so the graphics are super bad. Many of us have probably even seen this clip. But this is the idea. This is the representation of Talos. Let's do it a little bit, because here at the end, this one guy, he pulls this plug out of the back. This is how the story goes. How to defeat Talos was to pull the plug out of the back of its ankle, and then the ichor, the fluid that gave it life, the ichor would flow out of it, and that's the only way it got defeated. He's trying to pull it out. Oh, he pulls out there goes the oil or the ichor or whatever it was that was powering him inside the metal. Okay. So that's silly claymation, horrible CGI, but the idea is they've been pushing this stuff for a long time, and they've gotten better at pushing this story. I'm going to show you guys in a little bit. But real quick, let's take a look as we investigate deeper. We're going to take a look at the different embodiments of automatons in modernity. Okay, so this is artificial intelligent automatons in modernity, in the modern day, okay? So in the 1700s, approximately 1726, there's a famous book written by Jonathan Swift, and he published a book called Gulliver's Travels. And this includes a description of, quote unquote, the engine. It's a machine on the floating island of Laputa, a project for improving speculative knowledge by practical and mechanical operations. By using this contrivance, the most ignorant person at a reasonable charge with little bodily labor may write books of philosophy, poetry, politics, law, mathematics, and theology with the least assistance from genius or study. So this is very interesting, and we're gonna talk about Gulliver's Travels in future episodes as well. But just there's so many things within this satirical book that he's revealing the religion of Babylon within this book. So Laputa was this floating city that Gulliver encounters in his different travels, and he runs into the big people, the little people, and then he runs into the people that are floating in the city. And they had this thing in the city called the engine. And by this engine, you could create knowledge, probably the easiest way to put it. Through practical and mechanical operations, it created knowledge. This is a modern day microchip. So it's interesting. On one hand, you've got in the 1700s, you got a guy saying that there's a city flying in the sky whom they have this quote unquote engine that he describes that is able to produce knowledge through turning it with different levers and things and changing the words that are in those little boxes. And then here on the left-hand side is a modern day microchip. Quite a different similarity there. Here is more representation of AI automatons in modernity, right? In the modern day, and arts and things that are presented to us in arts and media. The Iron Giant, we probably all familiar with this from being a child. The cartoon The Iron Giant was an artificially intelligent flying robot who fell from above to the earth and needed help from its internal defense system. Flying robot. This is a movie in 2008. The Day the Earth Stood Still is a 2008 American science fiction film, and it's a loose adaptation of the 1951 film called the same thing. It follows Klaatu, an alien sent to try to change human behavior or eradicate humans from the Earth. And Keanu Reeves plays the Klaatu character there on the right-hand side, and you'll notice some unique imagery that's in the background. We'll talk about that a lot more as time progresses. Klaatu possesses the human form, while the thing he brought with them is accompanied by a giant flying nano robot named Gort that will enforce mankind to behave as he and Klaatu need them to behave. Now, this is actually wrapped up in a Al Gore wet dream about climate change, but this is the idea that it's Klaatu and this big giant robot that accompanies him out of their ship. Gort just means genetically organized robotic technology. If that's not transhumanistic, I don't know what is. Klaatu and Gort descended to the Earth in a dark sphere-shaped ship in this storyline. So in the popular Terminator franchise, the self-aware artificial intelligence system is called Skynet. It's created by a company called Cyberdyne, produced robots to go throughout the Earth and kill mankind. The word dyne comes from the actual Greek, from dynamis, and it means power and force. So it's cyber, something that's, online, digital, internet related, right? So it's the force. And what came out of them was this thing called Skynet, which it's very on the nose. And robots were produced to kill mankind. Skynet builds many variations of robots and crafts to help the robots fly. And in the latest Terminator movie, the 2019, the AI Skynet is renamed Legion. It doesn't get more on the nose than that. In the popular Star Wars movie that we're all aware of, in the whole movie franchise, it portrays a robot humanoid hybrid called Darth Vader, who also comes from a sphere-shaped ship called the Death Star. Darth Vader is tasked to crush those who resist the Empire throughout the galaxy. Yeah, Vader Bear, it's just all a coincidence. It's all a coincidence. That's all it is. So we go on to a movie that not a lot of people may remember. 2004 Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow is about an evil inventor who wants to kill all of mankind and start over with cloned DNA. He sends giant flying robots to attack New York City, and this activates the protagonist to go try to find him and stop it. In 2015, the Avengers Age of Ultron movie, it portrays an artificially intelligent flying robot that creates more flying robots to attack people and tries to kill mankind with a floating city. This is Ultron. They lift up this Eastern European city that's fictional. It's called Sokovia. Yeah. Eric Rice used to love Sky Captain. Brother, I think you and I are the only two people that saw that movie. So what's fascinating is look, this is the depiction of Ultron's plan to destroy humanity in the movie, where he wants to lift the city in the sky through this levitating technology that he's basically figured out through his artificial intelligence. And he's an evil robot that wants to use a flying city to destroy people. And that's where his base is. That's where the Avengers have to go to him on the flying city to attack him and stop his plans. But just recently, in the animated version of Marvel, where they have that same storyline where we have this idea of a rogue automaton named named Ultron, who gets all the Infinity Stones that you saw in the popular movie that Thanos got. It's called a What If episode. Basically, it's a different outcome. They rewrite the story, and it's from a lesser known brand of comic books. But in the what if concept, that the automaton, the artificially intelligent automaton, gets the power of the Infinity Stones, and he goes in this flying orb-shaped ship to destroy mankind and to destroy all of his enemies and anyone that might disagree with him. So let's go back to this idea of Laputa, because this is fascinating. This is like we're going to talk about this more in when we get to next part 18. We talk about ball top towers, and I'm going to show you how even Hollywood not just glorifies it in films, but also as we will see on architecture all around the world, but even in Hollywood's architecture, they glorify La Puta. And so, by the way, La Puta in Spanish means the whore. So here is a very popular book that is called Castle, it was actually an anime film from like the 80s. It's called Castle in the Sky. Very popular. Lots of adaptations. Lots of people had loved this from like early anime back in the 80s. Very, very popular in Eastern Europe or Eastern Asian countries. Excuse me. But the point of this book, as a quick synopsis, was that the first robot seen in the film fell from Laputa and was recovered by the military. Laputa has the same representation in this 1986 anime film as it does in Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels from 1726. It's a floating sky. It's a floating city in the sky. And in this particular adaptation, there is a robot that falls from that floating city. And these two characters, Muska and Shida, they tell the people that the flying robot is dead. But then the girl in the story, she activates her Ethereum crystal on her necklace with a spell she learned from her grandmother, and the robot comes back to life. The robot nearly destroys the base trying to reach the girl, whom it is programmed to protect, as she is Laputian royalty. So she's actually from the floating city. And when Shida and Laputa reach Laputa, they discover many more robots, but all except one are inert or deactivated. Very interesting. Here's a 2016 very popular game. It's called BioShock Infinite by HD Games. It is about a large floating city comprised of multiple islands and aircrafts. And guys, this one is just this one blows my mind. Like I'm going to be actually getting into this little particular game as well because it's a massive game. Lots of like the people that wrote this game put a lot of backstory into it and talks about how this entire floating city is based off a religion, and it's a cult-like religion. And it's just there's so much symbolism in this game. It's just horrifying when you actually know what you're looking at. But you know, if you're a 16-year-old kid or 17-year-old kid and you don't have a clue about this stuff and you're just thinking, oh, this is a fantasy game, right? It's amazing. I mean, it's a very impressive game, but when you actually know what you're looking at, it's horrifying. The protector of BioShock City is called Songbird. It's a giant, artificially intelligent flying robot built from robotics and the DNA of a woman's hair strand. This is a very popular online game, has been for years. It's called Warhammer. And in this game, well, I shouldn't say it's not in this game. Let me say this the right way. There is a very, very popular fan-made short movie based off of this game. And in fact, the creator of the little short movie has now been hired by the gaming company to make more graphics and more storylines for the game because he was his own little personal fan project that he made was so impressive that they basically hired him. But it's called Astartes. This is the fan film, and in this little fan film, it's only like 20 minutes long. It's all computer CGI. It's all digital game graphics. There is it's basically about a ship floating in space that has this orb that these huge genetically altered superhumans in these ridiculously strong armor is trying to board this ship that's floating above the earth or floating above a planet so they can get into this ship where this floating orb is being protected. And as they're walking through different places in the ship, they see a massive inert deactivated large metal automaton. Okay, this is just one. It's just you can see just beyond his skull on the right, you can see one of the armored soldiers walking by in this scene, and you can see the metal automaton laying down. It's not active anymore. This is the metal sphere that they're trying to protect, and these metal guys around it, they're not protecting it. This is the part where they actually get close to it to attack it. We'll talk about that in just a minute further. There's a couple scenes in here where they want you to see that even though in some scenes this sphere is being held by braces attached to the ceiling, in other moments that they just want you to see that it's levitating, even to the point of zooming in on the place where it's levitating. This is when the sphere is being chained up and kept from releasing its power. These two guys are representative of demons that protect the sphere. So these guys are their heads are not originally their bodies did not originally come with those heads. Those heads were transplanted in a transhumanistic way with their spines onto someone else's bodies, and they're considered demons that have possessed new bodies. These are the protectors of the sphere, and they protect the sphere with literally, as it's described, magic from hell. So, as some of the commentary talks about it. And this is somebody that sits and also watches the sphere to protect it. And this is someone called the Inquisitor. And I think it's fascinating that he does have the symbol of Hades on him because of what we're about to see in just a minute. So this guy in this particular symbolism would be representative of the second beast in Hades. And he's called the Inquisitor. His job in their religion, by the way, this whole thing is based off of it's a religious cult that they're seeking out people that disagree with the cult, and they kill them all throughout the galaxy. And this particular Inquisitor, that would be one of his jobs, is to, just as it sounds, just like the Spanish Inquisition. They seek out those who do not agree with their religion, and then they kill them. This guy is the representation of Hades, who guards in front of the sphere. So once the actual soldiers get to the sphere to try to attack it, they actually get sucked into it, and then they start having a vision. And in that vision, the sphere disappears. It happens very quick. It's very, very much game graphics, right? It happens very quick. And in a split second, the sphere turns into this angel on the back of this beastly character. It looks like a man with a beastly appearance and armor it's hard. The screenshot I had to get is very difficult, but if you have a clear viewing of it, I couldn't get a better screenshot, but the guy in the back of him, it looks like a smooth angelic looking character. It's amazing. So now you have represented in this thing that's floating above the planet, you have demons guarding this prize that's the sphere. You have Hades guarding who's representative of the second beast, who creates the image to the beast, which would have been the Talos character that was decommissioned before they got to this inner chamber, the metal automaton created by the second beast. And then once you actually get to the sphere, you see the representation of Satan and Apollyon. And then the soldiers are then sucked into an Isaiah 14 moment where it's like a strange version of Hades, where a bunch of giants who rise from their thrones, they don't rise because the camera cuts off at this point, but this is where the soldiers get sucked into, is a huge place where there's a bunch of giants on thrones, which is very, very synonymous with some of the words in Isaiah 14 about the king of Babylon being taken down, and the kings of the earth that rose from their thrones in Sheol to say, "Oh, you're here now." Very interesting symbolism, guys. That is artificial intelligence that's being represented in modern media and culture. What is artificial intelligence? This is something that we should probably take a moment just to kind of look at real quick. Artificial intelligence, on the left-hand side, big blue circle that encompasses the other two, systematic application of machine learning to achieve a cognitive action. That's exactly what we looked at from Gulliver's Travels, 1700s. He created a machine that was called the engine that helped you learn new ideas for inspiration and progress. Some examples of this are self-driving cars, robots, AI-based assistants, leverage machines learning as its brain and accomplish an action. All right, we drill down a little more specific into actual machine learning, which is the mint green circle, and that's something that learning is the actual brain that drives an AI system. So it's the actual brain of the AI that's helping it learn faster. It comes in various forms and types. It utilizes complex algorithms to perform its functioning, so it can have a sense of memory and reaction based off those memories and experiences as it learns. And then you go down even further into what's called deep learning, reinforcement learning, and other advanced machine learning techniques. Deep learning is a term that means a neural network with extensive series of hidden layers. Recent advancements in processing capacities of GPUs made it possible for business applications And then also it's allowed to build complex reinforcement learning modules. Very fancy language to just say that AI has been increasing exponentially, or at least what they're telling us. I kind of think they've had it for a long time, but at least what they're telling us has been increasing exponentially in the field of artificial intelligence and what they're able to do. So as you can see here on the left, big blue block on the left, artificial intelligence can create a robot. Machine learning is the brain, or the overall, I guess, step one of the brain. And then deep learning is like the inner workings of a truly sophisticated, smart learning machine that powers the artificial intelligent body. Okay. And so this is just a little bit of a breakdown from history in America since the 1950s and how this type of science field has progressed. Okay. But there are 4 basic types of artificial intelligence that we want to go over. Just so you have a quick idea, there's one is reactive learning. Another one is limited memory. Number 3 is a theory of mind. And number 4 is self-awareness. And I will explain these real quick. There's 4 types of AI. Reactive learning would be akin to what we see on screen, which is Deep Blue, what's called Deep Blue. It's an IBM supercomputer that they taught how to play chess and react to a human playing chess against it. Okay, so it's going off of, all types of calculations and also the possibilities within the chess game, which is a lot, a lot of mathematics as far as the possibilities. But then, it actually beats some of the really top champion chess players of humans. So it won some awards, or some credence, I should say, for being a version of AI, because it has a reactive learning built into it as a stage 1. Stage 2 is what they call limited memory. And this is the type of the AI that's going into self-driving cars today, like in the Tesla, where it's, gives you the opportunity it can recognize patterns of oncoming traffic, stop traffic, well, it's supposed to anyway. I guess people are struggling with it. I guess overall the company's struggling with not having wrecks, because there's been people talking about driving their Teslas and going 70 down the highway, and then suddenly it just hits the brakes for no reason and causes a wreck. So yeah, or it doesn't see this traffic is stopped in front of them and it doesn't slow down fast enough. So they're still working out the kinks, but that's what they call limited memory, because there have been people that have been able to drive a Tesla almost 24 hours without touching the wheel, and it navigates through cities and roads and highways and everything. So they're getting better at it for sure. Then there's theory of mind. And this is mostly what we see in the movies when it comes to automatons. Theory of mind is your Terminator style automaton. It is a programmed AI robot that serves somebody else in a capacity of representation. So therefore, the Terminator represents Skynet, recently renamed Legion. The Terminator represents Skynet, and it was built by Skynet, and it goes out in the service of Skynet, and it knows whom it serves. It has that much awareness to know that it's on a mission, and it has a sense of loyalty. So that's what they call theory of mind. Yeah, I know, Colleen. iRobot is in here, but that almost, there's a lot more philosophy in iRobot, and I didn't want to confuse people. I'm just going over the big broad strokes, the big ideas. 4 types of AI. Last one is what you would call self-awareness, and this is supposedly the one where, in the Terminator movies, the Terminator supposedly achieves this throughout his journey of being sent to help a kid in some regard. At least in the more, I think, number 5 or 6, I can't remember. They've gotten so convoluted. But those lots and lots of other automaton style movies, like the one, I think this one was called Ex Machina, and which was based off of an anime from a long time ago. And this is about a robot that becomes self-aware. Okay. So ultimately, from what we see in the scriptures, the description in Revelation 13 of the image that the second beast produces, and that image goes around and forces people to worship the first beast, or it kills people, that's more like a level 3 theory of mind Terminator style, because if it is self-aware, it doesn't act like it, because its only description we have is that it goes and forces other people to worship the first beast. And because it was made to look just like the first beast. So I don't know how many of the images of this thing is going to create, or if it's just one or if it's multiple of them. All the programming suggests it's multiples. I don't know. Could be just one, and he could be the representation of the head beast, and he's running around getting the governments of the world to enforce his will. But who knows? But let's take a quick look at some interesting advancements in modern robotics and technology, because that is, I mean, it's truly astounding. I mean, since I was a kid, they've come a really long way. So let me put this on screen for us. I'm not going to have any sound, of course, because I don't want to get turned off. But this is one that they made it to look kind of like a deer, a goat. They've got those reverse bent knee hind legs, which increase its jumping ability. This is just the bottom legs, right? It's not really much, but this is extremely difficult to do. Here is a robot that they've created that does not miss, and it shoots from anywhere on the court, calculates its shot. There's no wind to consider, and there's definitely no Coriolis to consider. So therefore, it just calculates its shot. Boom, makes it every time. I think it's pretty racist that they made it black, but whatever. Here is just farming automated robot to help people farm and sift out things. There's so many more, so many more. Here's the police dog, also used in the military. So did you guys see that it was jump roping from other robots. So it has this little arm on it, and it can pick up stuff, do laundry for you at the house. Oh, how nice! So it's like, so there's other robots doing the jump rope for it. So this is just to show you how far they've come. And it's by Dynamics. Remember, it's a Greek, is a variant of that Greek word force. Yep, there it is, taking a center block where it wants to go. Now it's just doing little things because it has the little arm that can grasp what it needs to grasp. It has an actual clutch. Open doors. This is pretty fascinating because look how its neck or the little hand bends. Man, it looks like the Matrix, the little squid things that come after the people in the Matrix. This one, of course, guys, of course they're making these so that it can help you. That's all it's about. They're just trying to help you. They just want to put it in the medical field and help you. That's all. That's the only reason they would ever make these. There's no other reason they would ever make these. No other reason. There's all types. There are also little bitty ones that are being used in surgery, sculpturing, art, all types. There was another one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There was another one at a chess match. Yeah, here it is. So here we go at a robot symposium. This is the walker. No, that's not supposed to be a zombie reference, but boy, it sure is on the nose. Yep. So as you can see, sit down, turn around, play some chess. This is fascinating because this is an actual robot that can camouflage itself like a chameleon. And they even say in the video, which I'm not going to play the sound because I don't want to have the video stopped in case there's a copyright issue. They even say in the video that, oh, now the robots can sneak up on you. Sadistic narrator. But yeah, it changes colors as it perceives the surface it goes over, becomes a new color, so it can blend in and sneak up on you. Oh, how considerate. So amazing. So there's a ton of different advancements in modern robotics. So the idea is that when they get all the movements figured out, right, they're going to get the the functionality of the hands. And I mean, they've got other robots that have hands. They've got other robots that can shoot guns. They got they've got robots you probably saw in the teaser trailer to this where they can literally do flips and somersaults. They can jump up on boxes and turn around and stand on one leg and do a backflip. Like almost the entirety of human movement, maybe without the swiftness or the grace, but almost the entirety of human movement can be replicated now with smart robots. That's just the external mechanisms, right, of the limbs moving and the head turning and all that stuff. Then once they get the AI perfected, they can merge the two. That's obviously the goal. But real quick though, I just want to start talking about the sales pitch of the mark of the beast, because this is what's being put on us, so that when the first and second beasts arrive and they start their 42-month reign, they're going to get pushed back. I've talked about this before, but there will be people that fall for it, right? People that do take the mark and that do worship the first image, the first beast, which is the image was made to look like, because they're afraid of dying. So this is transhumanism. They told me I could be anything I wanted, so I became a god. Companies, this is it's called Transhumanism, the Future of Humanity. It's 7 Ways the World Will Change by 2030 by Sarwant Singh. It's back in 2017, November 2017. It's an article. We're going to read a couple pages from this article as it breaks down some of these ideas about how transhumanism will blend into AI and robotics. Companies today are strategizing about future investments in technologies such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, or growth around new business models. While many of these trends will make for solid investment for the next 5 to 10 years, fewer companies are considering the revolutionary convergence of disparate trends pulled from technology. Disparate trends pulled from technology, behavioral and societal changes, and medical advances to understand how they will converge to transform society. So they're just telling you right here, they want to transform society with behavioral and societal changes, technology, medical changes. This transformation will be messy, complex, and sometimes scary, but signals already point to a future of humanity that will blur our identities into transhumanism. The coming years will usher in a number of body augmentation capabilities that will enable humans to be smarter, stronger, and more capable than we are today. Wearables will be one form of body augmentation, but they will far surpass the fitness trackers of today. In the future, we can expect the arrival of contact lenses that can take pictures or video, universal language translator earbuds that allow us to communicate anywhere in the world, and exosuits that increase physical strength. We will also see increased use of implants ranging from brain microchips and neural lace to mind controlled prosthesis and subdermal RFID chips that allow users to unlock doors or computer passwords with the wave of a hand. However, the most powerful body augmentation will come from biological augmentation as a result of increased insight into our genomes, advanced and IVF technology that may allow us to select the most intelligent embryos, and powerful CRISPR gene editing technology, which may one day give us the ability to eliminate all heritable diseases. The coming years will usher in a number of body augmentation capabilities that will enable humans to be smarter, stronger, and more capable than we are today. Wearables will be one form of body augmentation, but they will far surpass the fitness trackers of today. So I apologize. I put this, I shouldn't have keep reading this, but the point is I just want to show you the picture on there. This is what they're envisioning for wearables, just like I talked about in the Mark of the Beast episode last time. There's different types of wearables. I wanted to show you some different types, not just the paint or the tattoos that can actually have gold flakes put in with neural circuits inside, but also holographic wearables that they're trying to create, and they have created, but they're trying to master at this point. The most powerful body augmentation will come from biological augmentation as a result of increased insight into our genomes. So this is what we were just talking about, right? The advances in IF technology that allow us to select the most intelligent embryos, and the powerful CRISPR gene editing technology, which may one day give us the ability to eliminate all heritable diseases. These body augmentation capabilities will give rise to humans that are more resilient, optimized, and continually monitored. They will also lead to implications around which job opportunities are available to those with and without augmented abilities, as well as impacting sports competitions with hierarchies based on body augmentation. So, guys, this is basically saying you may not be able to get a job unless you're augmented. You may not be able to play professional sports unless you're augmented. This is what they're putting out in the culture to be received and get used to. So when they enforce it. This is a Neuralink on the right-hand side. This is something that Elon Musk has been working on. It's actually, see that little thing in his hand, that little computer would go inside your brain, and I'm sure it would feel uncomfortable if it didn't cause some horrible problem after the procedure. Both wearables and implantable brain machine interfaces, called BMIs, and no, that's not a bowel movement initiative, but that's pretty much what this smells like. They are in development from organizations that include Elon Musk's Neuralink, Facebook, and DARPA. The Facebook, guys. just in case you weren't aware that Facebook and Instagram was data mining everything about you with all types of algorithms. These devices will dramatically alter the ways in which we communicate with each other, as well as digital devices. So today, when I speak with others, I'm limited by the speed with which I can speak and the words on the tip of my tongue. And when I interface with a computer, I'm limited by the speed that I can type. BMIs will change all of this to enable communication at the speed of thought in its full, unfiltered state. Mark Zuckerberg has described the following scenario. Today, when we share our vacation experiences, we upload photos and videos. With BMIs, I can share my full sensory and emotional vacation experience with my friends and family. All sounds great, right? All sounds lovely. So again, highlighted in the passage, the second beast deceived those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image to the first beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast, that was the Nurgle character, the Anubis, the Hades character, the one that's commonly referred to as, as Hades and in the Bible. He's also Nurgle in the book of Jeremiah. He's permitted to give breath to the image of the first beast. That's that first beast that we've located the actual name of Apollyon, who was Apollo, who was Helios to the Greeks. He was Baal and Molech to the Canaanite clans and the Amorites and the Hittites. He was Osiris to the Egyptians, right? So that the image of Osiris, the image of Apollo, the image of the first beast, it's an idol they've created, guys. It could cause all who refuse to worship it to be killed. If you don't, guys, I don't know if I can make this any more clear. Baal, like the ones, the Israelites in the Bible, all throughout the Bible, kept turning back and going to worship Baal instead of Yahweh, and the transgressed the covenant and got in trouble. And Baal, that's the dude coming back, because it's been the same guy throughout all the nations. He's the king of Babylon, and his right-hand man is coming back with him. It's Hades. So it's Anubis. It's the same hierarchy of administration of evil. The serpent, the first and second beast. In Egypt they call it Ra, Osiris, and Anubis. In Greek, it would be called Zeus, Apollo, and Hades, or sometimes Hermes. It's the same hierarchy in Revelation 13. The dragon gave his power and authority to the first beast, who the second beast rolled in all the authority and power of the first beast, which essentially was given to him from the dragon. It's the same three guys. They're coming back. And some of them never left. So Revelation 13, 16 through 17, the second beast required all people, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand or on the forehead, so no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of its name. Again, to reiterate, the second beast, not the first one. So still, they come out at the same time. The mark of the beast is only going to be happening during a 42-month time period. So when you see the first beast, you're going to see the second beast coming out to promote the first beast, to get people to worship it and force people to worship it through manipulation and threat of death. Revelation 17, 11 through 13 tells us directly that the beast that they saw coming up out of the pit, Revelation 9, this Apollyon character, is the beast that is not during the days of John when he's writing this, getting this revelation. And then he is an eighth king, who belongs to the other seven. So he's the first king of Babylon that's returning. This is Nimrod of old, who's also been called Helios, Apollyon, Apollo, Apollyon, Osiris. Yeah, same guy. 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 4. Now, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together to him, we ask you, brothers, not to be easily disconcerted or alarmed by any spirit or message or letter seeming to be from us and alleging that the day of the Lord has already come. let no one deceive you in any way, for it will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness, the son of destruction, is revealed. He will oppose and exalt himself above every so-called God or object of worship. So he will set himself in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. So it's pretty amazing. So this is why he would want people to worship his image, his statue, his idol, his walking statue. Because he wants to be God, just as he was called God and worshipped as God in all the nations throughout the Old Testament. And even during the days of 2 Thessalonians, when Paul's writing this, he goes on to say the coming of the lawless one will be accompanied by the working of Satan. Did you guys know there's a huge temple in Pergamum that's mentioned in Revelation 2, where it's the seat of Satan? It's this big temple to Zeus. It was a famous ancient world temple to Zeus in Pergamum, which was in the land of Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. Used to be called Anatolia before that. So this is where Pergamum would be regionally located, and this is why it's being referenced as the seat of Satan, because it was where Zeus was. So in Greek mythology, this Talos guy was a giant robot, an automaton that was commissioned by Zeus. So the second beast in Revelation 13 is in the same authority as the first beast. They both, the first and second beast, they get their authority from Satan. That would be represented as the Zeus character. And then the second beast builds an image representing the first beast that moves, that can speak, forces people to worship the first beast. Daniel chapter 3. This is it. This is the ways of Babylon. Remember what we talked about in part 10 and 11, or part 11 and part 12. These are the ways of Babylon. This is false worship, idolatry, authoritarian control to force these people. Daniel chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If you do not worship Baal, a big giant metal statue, you will die. Was Baal there in this moment, guys, in Daniel chapter 3? Was Baal standing in the background? No, he's dead in Sheol. This is its image. The image was cast and made, and people were forced to worship the image. Daniel chapter 3, 1 through 6, King Nebuchadnezzar made a golden image 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and he set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to assemble the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other officials of the provinces to attend the dedication of the statue he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the province assembled for the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, O people of every nation and language, this is what you are commanded. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into the blazing fiery furnace. Guys, this is exactly what's going to go on in Revelation 13. It's the return of Baal and his little henchmen. They think they're gods. They're rolling in the authority of the dragon, Satan, to deceive people, one who deceives the whole world. And just as in thousands of years ago, which honestly the elites underground and different people that are the kings of the earth that try to control the world today, they still worship these three guys. They still revere and follow the lockstep. They worship these three guys. But coming out to the main stage, coming out to the public again, to the whole world. So making, just like in the days of Daniel, they're going to put up an image, except this one's not going to just stand there. It's going to be in your face. It's going to turn its head and look at you. It says, oh, you're not going to worship me. How about I shoot you or hit you with a laser or whatever capability they put into it. Or just, he could just tell the guards standing by, drag him away and kill him. The point is, it's the same thing that Zeus made a long time ago. Daniel chapter 6 through 9. So the administrators and satraps went together to the king and said, "O King Darius, may you live forever. All the royal administrators, the prefects, the satraps, the advisors, and governors have agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce a decree that for 30 days, anyone who petitions any god or man except you, O king, will be thrown into the den of lions. Therefore, O king, does establish the decree and sign the document so that it cannot be changed in accordance with the law of Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. Therefore, King Darius signed the written decree. So this is another moment here where they're forced to worship, guys. This is Daniel being set up by his competition at the time under the reign of Darius, being forced to not even pray to God, but instead to revere the authority as God, just like we read from 2 Thessalonians 2. This is what the man of lawlessness will happen. This is what will happen when the one who's destroyed at the brightness of the coming of the Lord, that guy, which is the Apollo character, the first beast, when he shows up, he's going to have an image made to him by his little henchman, the second beast, and that is going to go and force people to worship it and pray to it and honor it as God. And if you don't, they're enforcing Baal worship, guys. This is just the return of Baal worship. And then, as you can see, I'm trying to make a joke here, but this is Talos. Talos is returning as the image, guys. It's suddenly this Terminator franchise takes on a whole new meaning to me. But Talos will be back. He will be. Guys, that is all I have for this particular segment of part 17. When we look back in history and we try to see all the same deceptions, the same characters, the same actions to deceive, even to the point of consistently speaking of these three characters, Zeus, Apollo, and Hades, being in an authority position over automatons. So what is the image? It's just going to be an automaton. It's just going to be made to look like the first beast. It's going to, whether it's multiple ones or just one and has people under his control, he's going to go around to the earth because he can move and speak, and he'll actually tell people to worship it. Now, he's not going to require sacrifices be done to it, but he's going to call you to bow your knee, worship it, and do what he says, which is going to be to reject the creator, to reject the commandments, to take on their behavior, right? Take the mark. And this will be part of the persecution of Revelation 13, 7 through 10, that the first beast goes and persecutes the saints. So then the rest of 11 through 17 kind of starts explaining some of the ways that the first beast has been given authority to persecute the saints and overcome them. It's through what the second beast is setting up and enforcing through this image and the mark. So guys, there is truly nothing new under the sun. So Deciphering Truth is asking, so UFOs come down with robots instead of aliens? Both, guys. This is where, who do you think is going to be piloting the quote unquote ship? Who do you think, or the deceptive ship, the Vimana that comes back? That people don't know what the Vimana is, just like they don't know ancient Greece had automatons that were giant robots. Just like all the cultures talked about a giant robot. Guys, I didn't even get the chance to, I knew I was missing something. Oh, man. Goodness. I made all those slides. I had two versions of my presentation, and I forgot to email myself the updated version. Because hang on, let me see if I can find this real quick. Oh man, this is horrible. Nope, no, this is too important, guys. Give me a minute. I'm gonna have to go get my laptop, and I'm gonna have to. If you guys can just give me a minute, let me go get my laptop. And there's some other information from ancient India that I had in here because they also had automatons. I'm gonna explain that. And there's an ancient researcher. There's a modern day researcher from Stanford that is explaining, even in their own words, they're explaining the connection between all this. So I apologize, guys. I knew I was forgetting something tonight. I just had a busy day. So let me, if you would, I'm going to if you would give me just a few minutes. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Okay. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I am back. I am back. All right. Thanks for your patience. So this is. So hopefully I can get this big enough. So this is Adrienne Mayer. She's a researcher at Stanford University, and this is an article that she wrote based on some of her research into the gods and ancient robots, basically. And she said, my research into the first inklings of scientific impulse took me into the world of mythology, where ancient people first envisioned making artificial life, automatons, robots, self moving devices, and other marvelous things long before the technology made them possible. Now, that's her, Stanford academia mentality, right? That all this stuff was myth and it's not real and it's not, that it hasn't all been done before, but they just dreamed of things that we're now doing today because she doesn't think they had the ability to do it, which is pretty hilarious to me because of what she says a little bit later. But let's just keep going and read what she says here. She goes, "These stories about robots and other machines in ancient oral traditions were first written down in the time of Homer." Not true. About 2,700 years ago. But the Greeks were not the only people to imagine automatons and machines in antiquity. Similar stories existed in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and other epics. This is in India. In Hindu myths, automatons are made by the engineer god Vishwakama and the sorceress Maya. So how interesting, right, guys? That the robots are made by an engineer and a sorceress. That seems fitting. In Greek myths, they're made by the god of technology Hephaestus and the brilliant artisan Daedalus. She says, "I consider such myths to be the world's first science fiction stories. No single civilization had a monopoly on ancient dreams of advanced technology. Whether one looks at the Greeks, the Etruscans, the Egyptians, Hindu, Islamic, Chinese, or any other ancient culture myth about artificial life, they all contemplate what wonders might be achieved if only one could possess the divine creativity and ability of the gods." Now, guys, she's acknowledging that all these ancient cultures that she just listed off had stories of automatons and moving devices, but she just plays it off as, oh, these are fancy stories of science fiction, because that's what she's taught in academia, right? Is that an evolutionary mindset that everyone was more stupid back then, and now we're smart today, and they weren't smart back then. So obviously that's the way she's going to word it, but it's fascinating what she is admitting and how they were all interconnected. They all had the same things within these different cultures. She said, they all contemplate what wonders may be achieved if one could possess the divine creativity and abilities of the gods. But it's not possible to draw a direct line of development from mythology over millennia to modern scientific knowledge. I disagree. So, guys, this is on the right-hand side is a statue, carving, a bust, whatever you want to call it, a relief from ancient India. And it is about this device that these people are standing around. This was supposedly one of the automatons that was created to guard sacred relics in ancient India. And Yahweh's friend, an automaton, is a robot, basically. It's a moving metal machine that is usually depicted to look like a person, right? Like a humanoid. So as you see here on the right, this is one of the machines that they're all standing around looking at, was supposed to be protecting these sacred relics. I tried to change the color scheme on this so you could kind of see the picture a little bit more because of all the fading on the stone. So you can see the center of it has this unique look to it. And I try to isolate just the machine to show you that this is what they're standing around looking at. Is this some type of machine? It just reminded me of a Tesla coil, personally. We already talked about ancient India having the Vajra, which basically was described as a handheld Tesla coil, the power to exert lightning and thunderbolts, and it was one of the weapons of ancient Babylon. We went over that in part 2. So this researcher goes on to say, in Indian and Hellenistic cultures, that's ancient India and ancient Greek cultures, borrowed and influenced each other beginning in about the 5th century BC, and syncretism intensified after Alexander of Macedon and King Porus began relations in the 4th century BC. The traveling Greek sage Apollodorus of Tyana observed automated servants and self-propelled carts in the court of the ruler of India, and in India was centuries ahead of Europe in the technologies of distillation and hydraulics. So she's talking about 5th century BC, automated servants, self-propelled carts. And I got a picture of one here on the right from ancient India. Also, this researcher, in her opinion, the way she words things, she goes on to say myths feature flying chariots and synthetic swans, animated servants, giant robots, machines, and the like appear in the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Ketasaratisagara, I don't think I'm saying that right, the Haravamsa, and other works. These are all ancient Vedic texts from ancient India. Self-navigating ships appear in Egyptian texts. Guys, we talked about that in part 4, ancient flying machines. That's the boat of Ra. Ra, similar to Zeus, flew on a boat in the sky. Yeah, that's what the ancient Egyptians talked about. And it goes on to say Homer's Odyssey and android and animal automatons are described in Homer's Iliad and in Chinese chronicles. The most detailed account is in the Lokapanati from Burma. After Buddha's death, the story recounts that King Ajatasattu I don't know, it's so difficult. Ajatasattu, he preserved his bodily remains. This is claiming that this king preserved Buddha's bodily remains in a hidden chamber under stupa, under one of their churches or temples. The precious relics were guarded by Bhuta Vahana Yantra, which translates as spirit moving machines. And guys, just in case you're not familiar, we also are seeing a similarity in cultural medical knowledge, as the claim that we just read is that when Buddha died, they took his internal organs and created and mummified them and made relics out of them, just like the Egyptians would do. So they have the same burial practices. And oh, by the way, supposedly you got automatons guarding his mummified remains. That's crazy, guys. So then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Then it goes back into some of the other parts of my presentation. But just to remind folks that all the cultures shared this, guys. All the cultures knew what this was. This was not a surprise to people. This was not new information. This was, like she just mentioned, the Etruscans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, it's all of this kingdom of Babylon, even over in the east to the Chinese. They all had these same types of ancient knowledge, and for some weird reason, it was suppressed to the general people and brought back, and it's been in the last 100 years brought back out as if it's new technology. I shouldn't call it a weird reason. It's an obvious reason. They want to perpetrate the same levels of deception, but they have to have a fresh generation, because remember, 200-300 years ago, they started with the narrative that would fit. Okay, so let me back up and say it like this. Everything we just read about the ancient cultures and how they had automated moving machines, automatons, robots, that was all under the worldview of something very similar to biblical cosmology. And the only one that I've heard explained is ancient Sumerian cosmology, which was slightly different, even though they did talk about a bricked firmament, that the sky was made of bricks. They also talked about how the gods from above came down from heaven, the sky above, just kind of like the Greeks, but a little more different language. And then they're the ones that genetically mutated monkeys and created mankind. Oh, sounds like evolution, right? Like I said, all these deceptions are just repackaged from ancient Babylon. So that all these things we just went over in the ancient cultures and this idea of some of the knowledge of the gods that had been put into these automatons and used for the purposes of the gods that we've been discussing. That was all under a worldview very similar to biblical cosmology, just not the descriptions in the Hebrew scriptures. But they kind of took what God had described in the Hebrew scriptures of a multi-layered firmament, and then they kept the enclosed parts, but then they just kind of shifted little parts of it, and then that's where you get the Nordic theology of the 9 realms, and you get, like the one firmament instead of multiples, and you get the Egyptians representing the firmament as a god, personifying it as a god, being a big woman that's made of water that stretches over the earth. And they called her Nut, N-U-T, Nut. So what changed is about 300-400 years ago is it moved into, they decided, I guess it really started more like 500 years ago. They decided we need to help people forget that they live in an enclosed cosmology created by a creator. Because even the gods of old could not ascend above the firmament, even though they were said to be in the sky. We're going to talk about that more later. But they could not ascend above the firmament and truly prove if they would have claimed they came from above the firmament. There's no way they could have proved that or shown it to anybody. They changed the whole setting through which the deception would come through. And they said, we're going to take this new model of a ball in space with no covering, with no barrier, with no enclosing, with wide open spaces, limitless, infinite limitless. Actually, the exact opposite of an enclosure with finite space. They're going to make it infinite space. So they just flip that on its head. They turn the flat circle of Earth into a sphere. And then they decided this narrative that is the ancient gods hierarchy is going to be repackaged. Instead of coming from the sky underneath the firmament, they're going to come from some other place outside of the known area of the earth, which is a repackaging of the idea that the gods came down and helped mankind. But they just changed the placement of where the gods are coming from, since it's literally the same quote unquote little g gods, right? They're just changing the placement where they're coming from. So therefore, the new generations of people can be deceived. So in order for that to work, well, then you got to get rid of, and you got to suppress, and you got to hide all the old world's evidence that all of this has been done before. I hope that made sense. So you've got all the technology, all the machinery, all the automatons that the ancient world used to have, all the sorcery and the magic that they used to implore and deceive the people with and oppress the people with. They still got it. They're still going to use it. They're still allowing certain parts of mankind to know they have it, and they're scheming and strategizing in order to figure out how they can get the new leaders of men to perpetrate this deception as well. And all the governments are going with it. It's part of why they're all involved in the United Nations. It's a part of the pact. That's why they have an altar to Molech in the United Nations in the prayer room. They're all a part of it. So they needed this strange, how do I say this? It's almost like they needed a regression. This is why, they termed the quote unquote Renaissance as a revival of knowledge, right? Advancements in art. And, but really you're just like, okay, Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s made an automaton lion, and he made an automaton suit of armor that barely moved. And it's, it definitely didn't do what the ancients said their automatons did, right? It barely moved. You know what I'm saying? And it impressed like King Louis the 15th or whatever his name was in France in the 1500s. And like it, scooted across the floor, little lion scooted across the floor. Nothing like what's, and they called that advancement, right? They said, oh, there was this emergence of industry. And then it came into the 1700s. And then we get into the actual industrial revolution. And they thought that was amazing. That was no, they had steam powered things way back in the day, boats, ships, machines of all different types thousands of years ago. It's not new, but the narrative was, this is new. And gods are not real. We got to push atheism so nobody believes in this stuff anymore. Therefore, when we bring it back out, it'll be fresh. It'll be not fresh, but like I said before, it's already been pre-programmed for you to get used to it, but not in a real way. So the initial introduction of it was that this was stories of old myths, Greek. So you're still getting used to the idea of seeing it, but just under the fashion that it's not real. But when they do flip and they say, oh, it is real, he's right over there, and he wants you to worship him because he created you. He came to this planet, Panspermia, and seeded this planet thousands of years ago, or 100,000 years ago, and they're back because they realize that we're destroying the earth, and they want to help us with all of our diseases, and they want to help us cure global climate change. Just like, the storyline of many of these science fiction movies. So that's where I hope I'm saying this correct. I hope I'm saying this in a way that can be picked up, and people are, tell me in the chat, guys, if you guys are picking up what I'm trying to put down, this idea that it's all repackaged, but it's how they're repackaging it to the point where they're the same characters that are going to come back with the same types of deception and the same types of enforcement of idol worship on the world. This is what I had talked about previously in a video where I talk about the externalization of the hierarchy, right? They want to get what had been suppressed and put underground so people didn't think it was real anymore, that underground worship to Baal. They want to bring that out to the public again. And they're going to do that during the 42 months that they have to reign on the earth. But it's going to be through a deception that they will pay off with this alien thing, which I'm going to explain more as we get into further parts of the series. Probably, and I just want to let you guys know, the next series, or the next part's part 18. It'll be Ball Top Towers, but then part 19 and part 20, which is going to be the Eye of Ra, Eclipses, and Mother Babylon. That part 19 and 20, I'm going to have to do like a double header. So we'll do 2 episodes in one night, because if I stop after part 19 and don't explain part 20, you guys will just be like either mad or full of questions because, I have to. So anyway, it'll be like 4 or 5 hours that night of part 19 and part 20. But ultimately, we're just breaking down the deception, guys. That's all it is. Breaking down piece by piece, layer by layer, the different deceptions that are implored, and how it's, all this semblance of from days of old, from gods of old. All of this is all these people that are being mentioned. The Bible mentions them. Okay. So hopefully this prepares you and enables you to go out and have this conversation. And someone's like, oh, well, Revelation is all up for interpretation, all this and all that. And you're like, not really. I can explain these things to you. I can explain who the beast is, who the second beast is, what the image is, who Satan is. That's mentioned all throughout the Bible. And you can see real world examples of them creating worship to these things, respect and homage to these things, and pre-programming for the world to accept them when they do get back on the scene. So if you guys have any questions about what we talked about, please put them in the chat, and please put it in all capitalization. Okay. So that way I can easily see your question. But this basically concludes part 17's presentation for tonight. Well, I do want to encourage you, brother, because church folks will listen. Some of them will listen because they're all in the chat tonight. So maybe not the majority. I agree. Maybe not the full. Maybe not as many as we'd like. I don't know about the majority. Maybe not as many as we like, but they will. I mean, they're in the chat tonight. I was a church folk. Here I am talking about it, presenting it. So, all right, Taki. I personally don't see any correlation with the number of talents that were given to Solomon versus, other than just being occultic pagan stuff. And honestly, I've not been able to find the Greek, the Assyrian, the Hebrew, the Mesopotamian, the Egyptian, none of the gematria that breaks down to 660 and 6 for any of these people's names. So it's the number of a man, it's the number of the beast. We already determined who the beast was, that he was a man. He's going to come back, and I don't think he's a man anymore. But we already know his name. So regardless of whether it's according to the one Byzantine manuscript that says 616, or whether it's the other manuscripts that say 616.6, it really, I don't know the exact correlation of that. And honestly, we get so many other details in scripture that tells us the identity of the beast. I don't need this extra information personally. I know who he is. I know what authority he's under. I know who his henchman is, and I know exactly how they're going to enforce the mark and worship of the first beast. And so, how that's going to play in, it doesn't change any of the other parts of the story from my understanding. So I know that people definitely, a lot of people are interested in the actual number itself, but they're skipping all the other detailers, the qualifiers and the details that it gives you in that passage because they obsess so much about that number. And I'm like, wait a minute, guys, it just told you who this guy is, so like that's I guess my focus for that. Rucknet Stream, I don't know if you saw the last part, but I told you, please go check part 16, where we go over the mark of the beast, and we know who's going to enforce it, and we know that it's going to be something that you would put on your body. I don't know exactly what it is. It just doesn't matter, because again, this is what I'm trying to say, guys. If it's not the jabby jab, because the beast, first and second beast, haven't shown up yet. That's the thing that I can't stress enough to everybody, because this particular chapter, Revelation 13, the mark of the beast, and these concepts are probably the most commonly asked to our ministry, right? People are always emailing us and asking us or messaging us, hey, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Guys, and they'll send me full-on breakdowns. I think it's the microchip. I think it's Sunday worship. I looks like it's the Jebba Jeb. And you're like, guys, it's the first beast will be here, forcing people to worship it worldwide. He goes out and persecutes the saints and makes war against the saints. That's not social media persecution where someone down thumbs your Reddit post or someone blocks you on Facebook. He goes out to kill people for worshiping Jesus and keeping the commandments of God. Guys, this is very blatant. When the first beast shows up, you will not miss it. You will know when the first beast shows up. Once they're here, the mark is enforced, the image is created, and enforces people to worship the image of the first beast. Okay. So I just want to be very clear. It doesn't matter what the mechanism of technology is that they're going to track your ability to buy, sell, and trade, because we know who enforces it, and they were given his name and the time qualifier of when he's here. So that way we don't have to be in fear. We don't have to keep obsessing about the guesswork of what possible technology it might be for when it actually happens. I hope that's a decent answer for you. Howard Sanford is asking, do I think it's an evil spirit that runs the automaton? That is what I haven't decided yet. That is a great question, because whether it's true AI or whether it's just the ability, because they are mixing this with transhumanism, like I talked about. So I don't think the automaton is going to be all metal and circuitry. I think it's going to be a mixture of cloned DNA, just like I've been talking about in some of the modern representations of this in media and art, is that it's an automaton based off of cloned DNA or DNA from a person. So I think it will be a transhumanistic android style automaton with artificial intelligence. And I think the purpose, my understanding of the purpose of the transhumanism movement, is to create a host body that an unclean spirit can possess. So it could be, your guess could be my guess as well. Chico 1985, yes, this is the indoctrination of the children for the last 40 to 60 years. So that now all these movies are being made. They're well received, as you can see, highest grossing movies of all time, because they planted seeds, they watered them over time, and then when the time came, now they have a deeper, stronger, with modern graphics and CGI and all this stuff, deeper, stronger form of indoctrination for these concepts, so that you're getting, like I showed you, Marvel movies, Marvel cartoons, anime, all this stuff. Like it's all there. It's all indoctrination to these concepts, so that when, by the time they come out in real life, it's not that, they've already got people desiring to have superpowers already. They've got people pushing for transhumanism bills to be passed because they believe the lie that they can be more than what God created you to be. Like I put that first image up there about transhumanism, and the tagline below that picture from that article was that transhumanism, they told people they could be whatever they wanted to be, and they wanted to be gods. This is the lie they've pushed on the culture, and obviously it's the same lie from the garden, right, from the serpent to Eve. It's the same enticement, the same lie, and it's the idea is that they want to get the populace desiring to be like the little g gods. So then when transhumanistic ideals and sciences and different types of things comes along, the people accept it, and when the return of chimeras happens, people accept it, because I think that's coming too. Same thing with giants. Again, this is why people always are asking me. They're like, "Oh, when's Jesus come back?" And I'm like, "The enemy's not ready. I don't want to say the world's ready. The enemy could deceive the world at any time. The Father can send His Son back at any time. That He only knows the day or the hour. But as far as this, when you're tracking and you're tracing the types of deceptions of Babylon and how they're perpetrating over the world today, leading up to the events prophesied in Revelation and other prophetic passages, I don't think the enemy's ready. It still has some things to accomplish before it can actually fulfill some of this stuff and get away with it, or at least get away with as much as they're prophesied to get away with. So Certain Ends asking about the Greek god Golden Blood Ichor. Is there a connection to monoatomic gold? I don't know, brother. Put in the chat. I don't know what monoatomic gold is. Doctor, welcome. Apparently, we have a doctor watching tonight, and he's saying that Dr. Alfonso Monzo is saying, yeah, we had a report today that 2 men had to go to the hospital because they let a spider bite them so they could get spider-like superpowers like Spider-Man. No joke. Yeah, and the Spider-Man movies is full transhumanism propaganda. Absolutely full on. All right, Tack, he's asking Gilgamesh is to Nimrod as Nurgle is to Enkidu in that particular representation. The best friend of, or the friend, the beast-like character that Gilgamesh brought along to his side. Cindy Hogland is asking where all these technologies go. They've been around. This is, the deep secrets of the kings of the earth and secret societies. They've kept them. They know about them. They've, and then I think that they little by little they bring them back out. But they've been around. Again, it's when you have. It's think about it like when you're waging a war, you don't always use your tanks. You don't always use your daisy cutters or your intercontinental ballistic missiles, or you don't always use your directed energy weapons or your railgun. But you got them. During the war, you may have to do other things to fool the enemy or rout the enemy or flank the enemy, and you don't always use all of your weapons at your disposal at all times. So, in a long game, a long con, like we're seeing from Babylon throughout the centuries, they don't always need to use all their technology for things because they, like I've tried to say before, the enemy, Satan, this is Satan's like strategy where he wants man to deceive himself. If he gets too involved, Father sends his angels to step in, and then Satan's apprehended, punished. Now something's done. He's stopped. He's thwarted. So therefore, he just needs to get better, and he's gotten really good over the centuries at encouraging mankind to deceive themselves. This is where we have all the stories in the last 40 to 60 years of universities doing DMT and hallucinations and acid and channeling spirits, and you've got occultists and Satanists channeling spirits and actually getting the whole story of aliens and the Greys and that kind of stuff. You have the people that talking about doing DMT and seeing the Clockwork Elves and getting messages from them and claiming that there's good and bad gods and getting this Hegelian dialectic told to them, and just all of this stuff is building and building and building for people to be deceived on many different levels, which is why I've been, we're going to part 21, right? We've been chopping up every single part of this. So the idea is that they all together, they have to hit you from a variety of different ways for you to be overcome and be deceived. A deception so great that even the elect would be fooled, right? A huge deception. And this is why this is a huge series. You got trying to break all this down. But hopefully it's palpable. Hopefully this has been bite-sized for you guys. White Space Marines, would you it's not on this channel, but this is my secondary channel, so I'm not sure if you are familiar with my main channel, Kingdom in Context, but if you go to my playlists on my main channel, Kingdom in Context, and go to the Milk and Meat playlist, you will see 2 videos within that extensive list. I think there's like 40 videos in that list, but you just scroll down, you'll see 2 videos. One says, where's Enoch now? And something about Elijah. To answer your question, no, but I do 2 full videos for both characters, Enoch and Elijah, on my Kingdom of Context channel, the Milk and Meat playlist. And I go over with lots of scripture what happened to Enoch and the scriptures to show it, and what happened to Elijah and the scriptures to show it. So hopefully that'll be a blessing to you, brother or sister. Becky D, we're going to be talking about that in part 19 and 20. So I'm just going to hold off on answering all the details on that because we're going to spend 4 or 5 hours on that concept. Joy's asking, do I think the clay army in China will be automated? Personally, no. I know that was supposed to be a robot army back in the day, which I think is fascinating because now they're just fossilized at the bottom of the ocean. But at the same time, like they got more advanced versions of automatons to bring out, so they don't need those. John Carter's asking, is there any place for a great reset to happen? But this is their plan. Is the Great Reset is just a word, is just a term to cover for forced collectivistic authoritarianism, communism. This is what we talked about as some of the ways of Babylon. We talked about this in part 10 of this series. So go check that out if you're new to the series, John. But that's the Great Reset is just a political word that's a mask, a shield, a cover for actual enforcing communism on the world. So. Okay, guys, I'll take a couple more questions. If you have any questions about what's going on tonight, or what I talked about tonight. And Deep Holes is asking, are we under the strong delusion now? I did read from 2 Thessalonians, and I would say no. I think that's what's going to happen with the mark when the first and second beast arrive. That's, to me, that seems to be the qualifier of the context of who the character that's being spoken about, that the Father sends them a strong delusion, so they believe a lie. So they're building the lie, and then, this is all allowed from the Father's. It's allowed to happen because, remember, the angel from the Father comes down, open the key to the abyss so that Apollyon can kick him out. And Hades comes out with him, right? It's the fourth trumpet, not the fourth trumpet, the fourth seal. So, and please, guys, if y'all haven't seen part 15, go back and check out part 15, where I go over the seal, trumpet, and bowl judgments, and I go over the timing of it with little charts to show you my understanding of those texts and how it all fits into what I'm saying with all these other parts, as far as when the timing happens for these things to start happening, and which trumpets happen in the same time span, and which seal judgments happen at the same time span, and then when the next one's happening. All of it's happening within a 42-month time period. When all the bowl judgments happen, all that kind of stuff. Part 15, if you haven't already seen it, I think it'll bless you guys. Okay, so let me do something real quick. Okay, guys, next time we do our Kingdom cast, we're going to be going over part 18. We're going over Ball Top Towers. So as we saw in a lot of the propaganda of the arts and media entertainment that was revealing the automatons, the Talos character, who's going to be the image that returns, when we're seeing that depicted in modern art and media, grouped with it was the spheres of ancient Babylon and what it's about. We're going to be looking at representations of that in media and art, architecture, all around the world, in history and modernity. Ball Top Towers. And this is going to lead us directly into a part 19 and 20, where we discuss the Eye of Ra as well as Mother Babylon. Okay? So this is, hopefully, this is going to be enlightening for you, because this is I just, for those of you who have never talked to me about this type of stuff on social media, you may have just heard you may have no clue where I'm going with this series, basically. But I promise you, if you think all the info has been fun and entertaining and educational and informational up to now, it's still, there's just so much more to talk about, and it's only going to make more sense and be more, like I said, once we get to part 21, I want to encourage everybody to try to not just run around and telling him the end of the story, because no one will understand it. You've got to go through this information with them. At least that's been my experience. This is why this whole series was designed as it's been designed, is because I tried it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 2015, when I was putting all this together in my research in my brain. because guys, I promise you, I didn't do nothing back in the day. Like other dudes that were my age back then, they're out partying, trying to do stuff or whatever. I came home and I I was boring. I came home and I researched. I read the Bible and I researched. So biblical cosmology was a huge revelation back then. Understood that, made sense of a lot of the stuff that you're seeing here today. But then I put all this other stuff together because biblical cosmology made perfect sense and helped me with that. In addition to understanding, um, how their day of the Lord and the return, all the qualifiers for the day of the Lord and the gospel of the kingdom returning to the ground. So through that, I started trying to tell people what you guys are going to hear in part 20 and 21. And then people are just like, oh, that sounds crazy. No, right? People laugh, ridicule, mock. They don't understand because they haven't walked through all this information because they're not, they're not a nerd like me. I just research stuff all the time. So hopefully by the time we're done with this, you'll understand why I encourage you with strong warning. Don't just run out and tell people the end of this story. You just do your best to try to walk them through things as I've walked you through this information so that it makes sense because it's a huge deception that there's so much cognitive dissonance to this idea because they don't realize how much of it they've been staring at this whole time. So anyway, I'll stop ranting, guys. Sorry. But yeah, Ball Top Towers next week. Or maybe not next week. Depends on my schedule, but hopefully next week. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I don't see any more questions. I'm going to bow out for tonight. You guys are awesome. Hopefully this series has been a blessing to you. And you guys go check us out. Go subscribe to West Blaze Music. And that's where we do our Uncommon Ground series on Wednesdays. This next Wednesday, we're going to be reviewing Leviathan and Behemoth. It's going to be pretty awesome. So make sure you go check that out. Also subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And go subscribe to our brother Ken Heidebrecht over at Hanging on His Words. And make sure you check out his music. He's got some amazing music too. So he just released a new album recently. Appreciate everybody. And we hope to see you soon.